Some NFL teams are just good and they have killer nicknames in such a good way. I mean, the Eagles of Philadelphia, they have a killer nickname. The Packers of Green Bay, the Bears of Chicago, the Jaguars of Jacksonville. These are like nicknames that really stick, especially the Raiders of Oakland. But when you look at a certain NFC East team and how good they are, and their nickname kind of slaps what the youngsters say nowadays. The fact of the matter is that the New York Football Giants are a very classic team and all that. What if I told you that one of the great teams actually could have been, it could have, would have, should have been the one seed in the NFC in what would be Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms' last year in the NFL? What type of moment would that bring? But the fact of the matter is that I have to do it a certain way, doing the what if. But anyhow, let's take a look at the 1993 New York Giants. So get ready. I said, are you ready? Are you ready for some Cutter What If NFL football? A weekend invasion. Yeah, it's Cutter talking to you live. We got the hits and the misses. So come join me for all the fun. All the rowdy fans come in. It's the weekend, y'all. Are you ready? Yeah, let's do this, baby. Yes. So the New York Football Giants were big, trying to get the NFL to New York because New York was a big city and all that. For the one of $500, Wellington Mara got to purchase the Giants and put an NFL franchise in the city of New York. For many years, the New York Football Giants would play at Yankee Stadium, home to the famous New York Yankees. It'd be kind of awkward having Giant games and Yankee games on almost at the same time because of the fact that, the Yankees would almost always make the World Series, and that gives the New York Giants a bit of a pause, if you will. Nevertheless, the New York Football Giants were big. The old days of the 1920s and all that. You had Charlie Connerly, Y.A. Tittle, and a few other good Giants quarterbacks and all that. The Giants had one big guy by the name of Sam Huff, who was a violent linebacker, and his violent hits in the NFL would get him a bad reputation and also a TV program about him. But the fact of the matter is that, TV was a lot different in the 50s than they are now in the 2020s. But the Giants were suffer a big loss in the 1958 NFL Championship game against the Baltimore Colts. They hosted the Colts, and Pat Summerall, yes, that Pat Summerall made a fantastic field goal to get the Giants to the NFL title game against the Colts in the first place. But now they were trying hard. The Giants had the lead, but then Johnny Unitas is one of the first instances of a 2-minute drive. Came through and got the Colts to tie and score, and then they won in overtime. The Giants touching the ball. The Giants would lose out in 1959 as well in Baltimore, so the candle burned on both ends. But the New York Giants were a decent team, but the 60s and 70s brought them a lot of downturns and all that. Not only that, they had to leave Yankee Stadium and go to the Yale Bowl, home of the Yale University Bulldogs, even though that was in New Haven, Connecticut, far from New York. The Giants would have to also share for a little bit of time Shea Stadium with the Jets, their hated rivals, and also the Yankees and Mets because Yankee Stadium was being repurposed. So the Giants were trying to think of a new stadium. Fortunately, though, the Giants did move to Giants Stadium, even though it was in East Rutherford, New Jersey, which is a little bit away from New York. It's in a different state. The Giants would obtain Giant Stadium and would keep Giant Stadium to themselves until the Jets moved from Shea in 1984. If memory serves me right. But the Giants were good. I mean, except for the 70s when Joe Pisarcik, former CFLer Joe Pisarcik at that, who could make it work up north in Canada, So what choice did he have down south? We all know about the Giants and their famous loss in 1978, the Miracle of the Meadowlands, when the Eagles were close to losing. All Pasarjuk had to do was take a couple of knees or run the ball, but he tried to get a handoff to Larry Sanka. Sanka fumbles the ball, and Herman Edwards races in for a touchdown, keeping the Eagles' playoff hopes in the '78 season alive and making the Giants disastrous. But at least Phil Simms came through. The Giants were reluctant to let Phil Simms be the main quarterback, but then eventually he did. In the mid '80s, the Giants started picking up speed as the best team in the NFC East, with Dallas in free fall and the Eagles as well. So the Giants went to Super Bowl 21 against the Denver Broncos and beat the tar out of them thanks to Phil Simms' nearly flawless performance, 22 for 25 performance. The Giants would come back to the Super Bowl in 1991 after having to go to San Francisco, dealing with the two-time defending Super Bowl champion Niners. And the fact that the Giants didn't score a touchdown at all and still beat the San Francisco 49ers 15-13 was amazing. And it also helped that Leonard Marshall knocked out Joe Montana with that hit. And no, that was not the fumble that broke the Niners' back. Ricky Watters, a few plays later, fumbled, and that's when the Giants got Matt Barr's field goal. And as Pat Summerall would say, there will be no three-peat. No team has three-peated in the NFL after Kansas City. Nevertheless, the Giants went to Super Bowl 25. They had a plan. Thanks to Bill Belichick, who was the defensive coordinator for the Giants. They decided, with him and Bill Parcells, to have ball control, meaning that the longer the Giants had the ball, the fewer seconds that the K-gun offense of the Bills could have the ball. And of course, we all know wide right. The Giants would suffer through it. We talked about the 93 season, so we have to skip the 93 season in presence. The Giants were okay in the 90s and all that. They got to Super Bowl 35 on the wings of a 41-0 thumping of Randy Moss and the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC title game. It was unbelievable. But the Giants may have used too much gas on the Vikings and not enough with the Ravens. Although the Ravens had a good defense and all that. And the Giants did score a touchdown, albeit on a kickoff return. Nevertheless, the Giants were decent. Kerry Collins came in to the Giants and helped them out. And then, of course, the Giants got Eli Manning. Only because Eli refused to go to San Diego. The Chargers drafted him anyway. The Giants would draft Phillip Rivers, and they decided to swap quarterbacks. And in one of the greatest win-win trades of all time, both teams were happy. The Chargers were happy. Phillip Rivers basically was the best Chargers quarterback since Dan Fouts. Does he surpass Dan Fouts? Nah, probably not. But regardless of that, the Giants had their guy with Eli Manning, and he would be good. Some say he's overrated. He could be overrated. Look at his stats and all that. But Joe Willie Namath is in the Hall of Fame with stats like that. And let's not forget that Eli Manning beat Tom Brady in 2 Super Bowls. Of course, as a Patriots fan, Super Bowl 42 will always be my Super Bowl to skip. I know it's sour grapes, but when you beat a team that was supposed to be undefeated and take care of the 72 Dolphins, best team of all time, you know what happens. I'm not as pissed off with Super Bowl 46. Like Super Bowl 46, a loss is a loss, and Pat ran out of time. That I'm not mad at. Of course, I know a lot of Giants fans through Facebook, like Justin Freed and Jim Schmiedenberg. And of course, a crazy story is that Super Bowl 46, me and Jim made a bet. If I lost, well, I told Jim that if the Giants were to be my Pats, then I basically would just kick myself out of the Blue Shirt Underground group for a month. And Jim says, no, don't do that. How about you just put a picture of Eli with the Super Bowl trophy as your Facebook profile pic? And I decided to do it. I wasn't upset with Super Bowl 46 as much as 42, so I just shrugged and I said, okay, fine, I'll just do the profile pic. And Jim on the Wednesday podcast said that all these New York Rangers guys who were cheering for the Patriots, they refused to honor bets and they were pissed off and all that. And then he basically talked about me and said that, you know, like make the bet, and he said, "Cutter, put the profile pic." He did it. He just did it. He didn't whine. He complained. He just did it. So props to Cutsy. So anyhow, that's what happens and all that. But regardless, the Giants have had their ups and downs. They have been kind of down lately, unfortunately, for the Giants crew. I mean, they have a Canadian born head coach. Why the hell can't Canadian born head coaches do well in the NFL? I just don't know. But regardless, let's talk about the 1993 Giants. All right, so let's talk about the 1993 New York Giants season. It was the 69th in the NFL. Not really so nice. And the first under Dan Reeves, who was fired by the Broncos. So, yeah, Dan Reeves, the guy who would wear a suit on the sideline instead of a normal coat. Regardless of that, Ray Handley was the Giants head coach, and they were 6-10 the last year. Ray Handley should never have been given the reins to the Giants after Parcells left. Nevertheless, the Giants won 11 games and qualified as one of the wildcard teams in the NFC, winning over the Vikings at home and losing to the Niners in the divisional round. After the season, Lawrence Taylor announced his retirement from football. And so was Phil Simms. He actually entertained offers to continue his career from the Cardinals and the Browns, but he decided to retire. So, yeah, they lost LT and Phil Simms after the year, so they would have had to play better. Regardless of that, Michael Strahan was actually inserted in the lineup for the first time. I know it. So there was significant roster turnover from 1992. No Carl Banks, he went to Washington. Pepper Johnson, linebacker, went to Cleveland. Leonard Marshall went to the Jets, and Otis Anderson decided to retire. And another major turnover was at the quarterback position. After Phil Simms went down to injury, Jeff Hostetler was the main quarterback and got them to win Super Bowl 25. Hanley decided to put Hostetler over Simms in 91 to begin the starter. But after Hostetler got hurt, Simms came back. Simms and Hostetler would have injury things and all that. Reeves decided to start Simms and release Hostetler, who went to the Raiders. The Giants would make two key moves in the NFL draft. Number one was their second round pick, Michael Strahan from Texas Southern, which was a good move because, Michael Strahan is an icon. Jesse Armstead was drafted in the 8th round from Miami, Florida. And, dude, Armstead was decent. Even had Brian Kozlowski, a tight end. So Dan Reeves was the head coach, and I think he was the GM in a sense. Quarterback, well, Phil Simms was number one. Dave Brown and Kent Graham were backups. Ronnie Hampton, Dave Maggott, and Lawrence Taylor were your good running backs and all that. Wide receivers, Mark Jackson and Ed McCaffrey led the way. Yes, that Ed McCaffrey before he was a Bronco. Howard Cross was the main tight end. Offensive line, you had Jumbo Elliott. Yes, Jumbo Elliott, Jets legend. He was a Giant at one time. Bart Oates and William Roberts. The big names, Eric Howard and Michael Strahan, defensive line. The linebackers, Jesse Armstead, Carlton Bailey, former Buffalo Bill. Michael Brooks, LT. Defensive backs, big boys like Mark Collins, Myron Gutton, Philippe Sparks, and David Tate. Kicking wise, David Treadwell was the main kicker for the Giants for a while, and then Mike Horan, the punter. So the Giants picked up Treadwell and Horan from the Broncos because they both were part of the Broncos the previous year. I can't remember who Denver made as punter, but they made Jason Elam, the rookie kicker from Hawaii, their main kicker. Preseason was nothing much. The Giants actually started 5-3, pulled off 6 straight wins, and then went to Phoenix to face the Cardinals and lost 17-6. And then that actually set up a 1-game winner take all against the Dallas Cowboys for the division. So that's what happened. And all that. High stakes were made in week 18 against Dallas. It was a 1 o'clock game. Summerall and Madden were the main guys, so you knew how to do it. The Cowboys Giants game was huge because not only was this for the division, this was for the 1 seed. Whoever won would be the 1 seed in the NFC and would have a bye week for the division round. Whoever lost would be the 4 seed, get a home playoff game, but that would be the wildcard round. So on a 5 Celsius 41 degree day, Fahrenheit day, Cowboys and Giants met. The Cowboys were up 13-0 thanks to Aikman's touchdown pass to Emmitt Smith and Eddie Murray, the Canadian, not the baseball star, with a pair of field goals. Eddie Murray from Nova Scotia, or was he from British Columbia? I think it was from British Columbia. Nevertheless, it was 13-0. The big thing about Emmitt Smith was that Emmitt Smith slammed his shoulder down on the hard turf of Giant Stadium and separated his shoulder. But somehow, in some way, he kept getting the ball back and he got 168 yards the whole day. So that's one of the most gutsiest performances ever because this was for first place and a bye. The Giants would score 10 quick points as Jared Bunch scored a touchdown run, and then David Treadwell kicked the field goal to make it 13-10. Treadwell, with 10 seconds left in the fourth quarter, tied the game, and then Dallas had the ball in overtime and won. So they were 12-4. They won 5 straight. The Giants were 11-5, lost their last 2. What might have been if they had freaking beat the Cardinals? So they had to host the Vikings in the wild card round. The Vikings were tough and all that. On a -7-degree day, it was a gusting wind. Thanks to Rodney Hampton's 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, they won. It was actually the first playoff win for the Giants in Super Bowl 25. And then they had to go to San Francisco. Summerall Madden would do that game, but Ricky Watters crushed it. 118 yards run and 5 touchdowns, breaking a playoff / Super Bowl record. No player had 4 touchdowns in a game. Not even Jerry Rice. But yeah, he put up 5 touchdowns at those pesky Giants, winning 44-3. Meaning that the Niners were going to the NFC Championship game against the Cowboys and not the Giants. It would have been weird to see the Giants and Cowboys face each other. Or would it? Now, normally I'd be thinking, well, my first thought was that what if the 93 Giants were the 1 seed? Because then I would just say, well, they were playing, I can't remember who was, I think it was Green Bay. If memory serves me right, it was Green Bay that got it. It was Green Bay versus Dallas in the division round. So I would have been Green Bay and the Giants. That's what I would think. But the rules are it has to be like, okay, what if the Giants actually did beat the Niners somehow for the second time in 3 years, shocking them and going to face the Cowboys in a rematch for the NFC title. So that's what I'm going to go with here. All right. So to keep in line with all my other NFL simulations, we're going to be just doing Giants Cowboys for the NFC title game. If the Giants win, then they would face the Buffalo Bills. We leave the other conference alone. So anyway, this is their offensive playbook, balanced and all that. In Dallas, it was 55 Fahrenheit when the game actually happened. The NFC title game in real life happened. So that's what the temperature we're going to go with. Here we go. And let's go to the first quarter. The Giants got the ball first. Hampton unfortunately carried the ball and loses it. Dallas did it. And then all of a sudden, the Giants had a face mask penalty. It was first and goal at the 5. Emmett got the touchdown and then the extra point by Murray. Good 7-0. The Giants would go on a 12-play, 63-yard drive just to set. They had first and goal at the 6. Hampton only got 1 yard. Sims overthrows Callaway in the end zone. Hampton gets back to the line of scrimmage. They have to go for a field goal. And Treadwell's 23-yard field goal is good, 7-3. The Dallas doesn't waste any time as Derek Losick, who was the main running back for Alabama when they won the 93 national championship against Miami. Oh, sorry about that. Pounded ahead for 21 yards and scored a touchdown. Dallas goes for the extra point. They bomb. It's 14-3 Dallas. Second quarter sees the Giants on 31 at the 4. Hampton gets a touchdown run to make it 13-10. 14-10, excuse me. And then after a long, lengthy play and a couple penalties, Dallas goes for a 23-yard field goal by Eddie Murray. Same bug. The Giants would charge with 55 seconds left to try to do something here. Fortunately, Dallas helped them out with an unnecessary roughness penalty. On first and goal, they tried to throw the pass, but it didn't work out. So they had to go for a 28-yard field goal by Treadwell. Dallas was up 17-13 at the half. Third quarter, Dallas got the ball, and then Murray finishes off a 10-play, 53-yard drive with a field goal. Unfortunately, though, the Giants would get the ball at the 3, and Dave Meggett got taken out. So it was a safety, making it 22-13. After getting the safety kick, Smith went up the middle for 1 yard, but then Aikman throws a pass to Moose Johnston, who makes the touchdown catch. Extra points at ball, 29-13. And the Giants don't not look good at all. The 93 Cowboys got a touchdown as Aikman had Calvin Williams to the end zone to make it 35-13. 36-13. The Giants score a touchdown after Hampton made it. They went for two, but Hampton fails. So it's 36-19. Dallas would eat up a lot of the clock. 9 minutes. They had a couple of third downs, but the Giants could not stop them. And the Cowboys would have won the rematch 36-19 anyhow. It's Kevin Williams with that touchdown play. So you see what happens here. Smith, touchdown run, Treadwell, field goal, Lassick, touchdown run. Hampton made it 14-10. Murray, field goal, trade. They traded field goals. Murray, 29 field goal. Ellsworth, safety. Aikman and Moose Johnson for a touchdown. Aikman to Kevin Williams, and then all that. Rodney Hampton was named player of the game. I don't know why. It should have been Aikman. Giants 5 for 9 on third. Cowboys 8 for 12. Rushing yards 209, 207. Passing yards, Dallas cushioned the Giants 208, 111. Hampton, well, I guess so. 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. I guess you should be named player of the game. Emmitt Smith only had 154. Only had 154. He probably would have had more yards if they didn't give Lassick that 21-yard run. So yeah, it was 161, 154 for Hampton. Receiving, Sherrard and Johnson. Sims 10 for 16, 111 and a pick. Aikman 15 for 19, 213, 2 touchdowns. The only pick was by Bill Bates. Murray made from 23 and 28. And Treadwell from 22 and 28. So the Giants would have went into Dallas, got their asses handed to them, and basically everything would have been fine. I could just hear Jim Schmiedenberg right now. Shut up, Cutter. That's all I got to say. I'm Jeff Diamond.